everybody, it's Matt Robinson. Welcome to another edition of the Writer's Block. As our fans know, I've had a lot of amazing independent authors on this show, but I gotta say, this is one of my favorites. Not only are the stories great, but they're coming out at such a clip, it's hard to keep up. I'm honored to have today Sheldon Goldberg. Welcome, Sheldon.
Thank you so much. I'm honored to be here. It's good to see you, as always.
Thank you, thank you. For those of you who may not know the name, Sheldon started in Boston radio, as I did, so we have that in common. Then went into the entertainment industry, working in the record industry, another relationship, and that's when things really took off. He basically invented what is now known as the jukebox musical with Dancing in the Streets, which premiered and was a huge hit in Boston, and then got into wrestling promotion, eventually becoming the head of New England Championship Wrestling. And that, in turn, has spawned this so far trio, with more already on the way, of amazing books about wrestling. And like I said, I've just been raving about these to everyone, buying copies for all my friends, and they have this great collection of kind of swag materials, which is actually based on fictional wrestling organizations that are in the books.
Right, they're depicted in the books, yes.
Right, yeah,
yes.
so it's a whole world unto itself, and I'm really glad to have you so we can share the world with our viewers.
So glad to be here.
What first got you into media, radio, and then just broad stroke how you got to here?
Well, being a child of the 60s, I was a child of TV and radio. So, I always had a fascination with that. And when I was in high school, I got the chance to get involved. I was part of an Explorer program that met at Channel 7, and which also owned WRKO and WROR. So there was my entree into broadcasting. Became very fascinated with that world, and didn't quite at that particular moment get the career that I wanted to get. But as I went to school and started to do other things, dabbled in different things, I ended up doing publicity for Broadway shows and shows on tour, and I became a theater producer locally, and that opened up a lot of things. It was an exciting and interesting period in my life. I got a chance to work with a lot of interesting people. My specialty was stars that nobody else wanted to work with because they were too crazy. Mm. The very first producer I ever worked for was a guy in New York by the name of Bob Fishko. And he said to me, "Kid, if you're going to do this, you got to remember one thing. There's two kinds of actors, crazy and hospital crazy." So he wasn't too far off the mark. But I learned an awful lot of things. I was fortunate enough to have some success. And as that went along, it got harder and harder to raise the money. I found myself spending more time trying to raise money than I was producing anything. And so I started doing different things. I started publishing a newsletter for collectors of wrestling memorabilia, because I was a big wrestling fan as a kid, and got more tapped into that world, and eventually started promoting in 2000. And was a promoter for close to 25 years. And when my health started to take a turn for the worse, I started to write books. And so here we are today with a trio of books.
Yeah, and they're all really, really amazing. I want to obviously get to the books, but I did mention about the jukebox musical. What gave you the idea of kind of basing it more on a genre than a plot, and how was it selling that idea?
Well, here's the thing. It started out as a failed date. I took this girl to a show called the All Night Strut, which played at a little theater, which I eventually played with Dancing in the Street, called the Next Move Theater. It was a review of 30s and 40s songs. And it was very, very popular amongst older people, like my parents, but it was not for someone like myself, who was a college kid at the time. And I think I made a remark to this poor girl that I could do better if I had the chance, and she just kind of laughed that off, and I got really upset. And so, so I said, let me put my thinking cap on and see what I can come up with. And so I just created a show that was something that my contemporaries would want to see. So that was basically the genesis of it. Motown, because all the Motown songs, especially of that era, were written in the present tense, so it was easy to dramatize them. But it was nothing overly dramatic. I mean, it was just basically the music. It was 8 singer-dancers and a 6-piece band on this tiny little stage, so it looked like this gigantic thing in this little space, in this little intimate space, and it worked, and ran for almost 2 years.
So you said that you had a reputation for working with difficult personalities. Any fan of wrestling knows that most of the people involved in that world are all about their personality. So
Right,
was that
right.
a natural transition into?
Oh yeah, it prepared me no end for that. I was ready. I mean, I had some pretty tough characters that I had to deal with in the theater world.
Who were some of the wrestlers that you worked with that names that people would know?
Well, John Cena worked for me before he became famous. Everybody knows that name. Kofi Kingston, Becky Lynch had her first match in America with me and my company. The artist formerly known as Sasha Banks, now known as Mercedes Moné, had her first professional match in New England Championship Wrestling. And others like Finn Balor, Ivar of the Viking Raiders. So there's a lot. There's a lot.
How does it work with the regional versus like a WWE? Are you like a training ground for the wrestlers who then is the point for them to go up to somewhere else? Or?
That's pretty much it. It's kind of a point of entry as opposed to it's not really a training where we didn't train any wrestlers. If you wanted to work for New England Championship Wrestling, you had to be a wrestler. You had to have something to contribute wrestling-wise right from the get-go. We just gave them a platform, and we had things like television that allowed them to display their personalities more and give them a chance to really develop in a more complete way as a performer. So that was really what made New England Championship Wrestling stand out from other small companies.
What about your experience there inspired you to write the first book?
Well, I'll drop back just a little bit. In about 2.5 years ago, my kidneys failed. I was on a flight home from Las Vegas. I was about 2/3 of the way through the flight. My kidneys failed. I got off the plane. They rushed me to the hospital. I was in the hospital for about a month. And I knew that whatever the outcome of that hospital stay was, my life was going to change. And I was hell-bent on continuing my creative life in some way, shape, or form. And I just had to kind of see through how things developed, figure out what it was that I could be able to do, and just do that. So once I had gone back to work and got back into the swing of regular life, I was now a dialysis patient, which meant going to dialysis 3 times a week, 4 hours at a time. So that's 12 hours a week of dialysis on top of 40 hours a week of work rather. That's a lot.
Yeah.
So I retired, and then I said, well, I've got to find something to do. And I had always wanted to write a book. I know lots of people that have written books. And this was my moment, and so I seized it. And I just took all that history and knowledge that I had of the professional wrestling industry and rolled it into that first book, which was, fortunately for me, extremely well received by people. And so then there had to come a sequel. And then this third book, the latest one, A Mad Dog's Tale, is a spin-off of book number 2. So it's become a little bit of a cottage industry for me, so to speak.
Yeah. Are the characters inspired by people that you knew and worked with?
Some of them not. It was mostly about how the business works and why it works that way, and what a person's progression through that business might be like, how that business changed, and why it changed. The first book takes place from 1971 to 1999. So the professional wrestling industry went through massive changes through that period of time. And the story of the book kind of delves into why as a backdrop to how this main character takes his journey through the world of professional wrestling.
how's it been received by the wrestling community?
Very well, very well. A lot of guys will say, "Wow, that was just like what I went through when I was coming up in pro wrestling," which is to me the ultimate compliment.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. What did you learn? Was the process of writing what you thought it would be?
No, it was a lot faster than I thought. I actually wrote the first draft of The Last Fall in 3 weeks.
Wow.
Which is amazingly fast. I just had all these ideas germinating. I actually started to write this book, A Mad Dog's Tale, first. Then I had the idea in the middle of it for The Last Fall, put this aside, and then finished this book off in as I say, the first draft was 3 weeks. It was about 2 months from beginning to end, beginning to a finished book.
Do they stand on their own, or do you need the through story to really get the
it helps if you've read them all, but it's not necessary.
Okay.
After the Bell is a sequel to The Last Fall. It takes place 17 and a half years after the end of The Last Fall, and A Mad Dog's Tale is kind of a spin-off of it's one character story that shows up towards the end of After the Bell, and it's his story about him and his family.
And I understand you're already well into book number 4.
Book number 4 is another sequel. It's called The Family Business, and it's about 3 young wrestlers who are all come from wrestling families. So hence The Family Business.
Is that really how the real wrestling world works? Are there just sort
Yeah,
of...
in the old days, if you wanted to get into professional wrestling, either somebody in your family was in it or you were recruited by a promoter or a wrestler. It was very much a closed shop, not like today. Today's a million wrestling schools and you can just sign up for one and learn how to be a pro wrestler. It wasn't that way back in the 70s. You know, you had to know somebody. You had to have an inside track.
Speaking of inside track, if people are new to the sport, will they still, what could they get out of the stories? I mean, they're great stories.
You don't have to know anything about professional wrestling because it's all explained within the books. I wrote it deliberately to appeal to a wider audience. I wanted anybody to be able to get it and understand what the thought process was behind it, the principles behind it, and why it is what it is, the way it is. So,
did you come to have a different perspective on your own experience through the process of telling the stories?
No, but I did get a chance to say a lot about the professional wrestling industry through the vehicle of fiction that I don't think I would have been able to do if I did someone's biography or if I did the history of an area or a time or a region or whatever. I just thought it was an opportunity for me to make my own commentary on the business itself without having to name names or tell tales out of school.
Is there a Sheldon character in there?
Nope.
No?
No.
Just observe?
Nope.
But I understand that an autobiography might be in the works?
That's distinctly possible, yeah.
Okay.
That might come after this next one.
What would you be hoping to share through that?
Maybe some life lessons about overcoming adversity and getting up when you've been knocked down. That's kind of what I want to convey with that, the general theme of it.
Well,
That's sort of the general theme of my life, but yeah. So I people so far, thank goodness, have enjoyed the books, and I'm getting a lot of very, very positive feedback, and of course that's very heartwarming. So I hope I can do the same thing with my own story.
What do you think what lessons again about the writing process have you learned that would allow you to, what do you think might be different about writing something that's that much more personal?
I might approach it a little bit differently format-wise than these other books. Like this book, A Mad Dog's Tale, was a different format from the other 2 books, and my editor thought that was really a brave and great thing to do, to just get out of that box and slide into another one. So I want to do something like that again with my own story.
So you really like stretching yourself and trying different styles and formats?
Yeah, I think it's cool.
Yeah,
It's a great thing to be able to do. It's like discovering muscles that you didn't know you had.
Right.
So and it's been such a rewarding experience. And you have no idea. I'm sure actually you probably do have an idea. But
I'm not nearly as prolific as you are,
Yeah.
but it's amazing.
yeah, I just I don't know. Maybe if it was just all pent up from years of watching other people I know write books and come out with them. But
Okay.
here we are.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Yeah.
you've looking at your career arc. I mean, you've pivoted and applied skills in different ways, so it makes sense that you would
I always
apply
say
your
when the
writings.
world zigs, I zag.
Right. Yeah. Well, and look
Yeah.
at where it's gotten you. It seems to be doing pretty well. What gave you the idea for the cups and the frisbees and the pins and all those things?
Well, when I put out the first book, I did a book launch party, and I wanted to have something to give to people. There was like an extra. If you come and you buy the autographed book, I'll give you a little bonus that goes along with it.
Right.
The first one was a ball cap. I'm all out of those. Those went pretty quick.
Yeah.
So for the second book, I decided I was going to I wanted to do something that was practical. So that was the coffee mug. And I figured, you can drink whatever beverage you want to drink out of it. It doesn't necessarily have to be coffee. It can
Right.
be, whatever beverages of your choice.
Absolutely.
But so I had the idea that I would create logos for the fictional companies that I depict in the book and just make merchandise. And so out comes this Great Western Wrestling coffee mug, which again has been a very popular item. And for A Mad Dog's Tale, the fictional company, or one of the fictional companies depicted in the book, is called Nippon Pro Wrestling from Japan. So we have a whole range of little items. We got a little mini frisbee right here, buttons, stickers, keychains. So
It's really
fun stuff that we can give to people. That if somebody says, "Oh, well, what's that Nippon Pro?" Oh, well, it's in this book that my friend wrote, whatever. So
Yeah.
there you go. That's what I hope to achieve with it.
What are just to kind of along those lines? What are the main differences between American and Japanese wrestling, just in terms of the culture and things?
Wrestling in Japan, it's much more about the athletics. It's taken much more seriously. You don't see a lot of promos or crazy storylines and so forth. It's more about the athleticism and the athletic credibility of it. So that's the basic difference in a sentence or so.
When you were more involved in the wrestling world, were you writing the storylines and writing the
Yes.
scripts and things of that sort?
Yeah.
What I mean, with the athletes also being performers, you're basically creating their characters in a way by how you.
I'm basically taking their characters and creating around them.
Mm.
That's really the process, rather than I'm not necessarily giving them a gimmick or whatever. Only in rare occasions. If somebody says to me, "Hey, I need some kind of a gimmick. I need to come up with something," I might help them do that. But for the most part, no, they come gimmick in hand, and then we kind of decide what we're going to do with that, and creating something that makes sense in a narrative context.
So in the same way as you brought a new genre to the realm of musicals, what do you feel you contributed to the world of wrestling in terms of how it's run and operated? And
We were the first company to stream a little homemade television show online back before there was YouTube. We did that on a weekly basis, and eventually that got better and better, and then we actually got it on television. We had a run for a year on Comcast On Demand, and then had a run for about almost 2 years on broadcast TV locally. So, being a showcase, giving local talent that kind of a showcase became sort of a unique trademark of ours.
do you think there's a book about your theatrical life, or would that come out more perhaps in your autobiography?
One sort of leads into the other. I mean,
Mm.
they're different businesses, obviously, but they kind of lead into each other.
Yeah.
I was kind of collecting experiences, I like to say, when I was a young person, and no cool experience was off limits for me.
Sounds like it's still not with all,
Right,
all that
yeah.
you're doing with this.
Yeah. Well, my physical abilities aren't quite the same, but between the years I've still got it. So
What has been the time, because the book seemed to just be coming out faster than I can turn the pages. So what has actually been the timeline?
See, this book came out first about 2 years ago. After the Bell came out about 8 months, 9 months after that, and the only reason it took that long is I moved in the middle of it.
Are you the type of writer who has a certain number of words per day, or pages, or time, or just
No,
as it comes
just whenever
to you?
I feel it.
Yeah.
Whenever I feel it. I keep a notebook by my bed, and so before I go to bed, I might write down a few paragraphs and some things that inspire me, and then when I finally get down to the computer, I'll take that and expand on it and whatever. So.
One of the things I understand you've really embraced is technology in terms of like designing the books and your promotions.
Yeah, I mean, I use AI a lot to create the covers and to create logos for the fictional companies. It's a tool. It's a good tool. It's your friend. So there's people that think the AI covers are no good. I should have hired a real artist. And my response to that is, I've hired plenty of artists in my time. I think I get a pass.
Yeah, you do. You definitely have are educated about promotion from theater, from the radio.
It's a help,
Oh, yeah.
It's a big help knowing
Yeah.
how to write a press release, knowing what to do, and mastering social media, which I am still doing.
Yeah.
So.
No, I think
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So you said the fourth book is on its way. The autobiography is in the wings. You've done so many different things. You really it seems like you've really been able to follow your passions and pivot when things get difficult. Are there any things that you miss that you'd want to go back to? Is there an undiscovered country still ahead?
If I had my druthers, I'd like one more shot at doing a theatrical production. I don't see it happening because I've been out of that world for so long that everybody that I was in it with is probably out of it or gone or retired from it or whatever. I am going to be doing another video project this year. Last November, I did a thing, I released a project that we showed in a theater, a video project called New England Championship Wrestling, The Lost Matches Live, which is a program of matches that we were either never released or they're not available on YouTube. And we're going to do a sequel to that sometime later this year. So I just want to keep that brand alive and do something, even if it's not a live show. And I also think that we did a lot of pretty cool things back in the day, and those things shouldn't be forgotten. So doing a little presentation like that gives me a chance to keep that brand on the table, so to speak.
Right. Well, I mean, with all this, I mean, it's all to keep it's a whole world that you're either recreating for yourself or bringing to new fans. So absolutely. I mean, the books are just so vivid. I mean, like I said, I've been a wrestling fan all my life, but it just revealed things that I didn't know, and I'm sure for people who don't know anything at all, it is a whole new world. So it's really fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much to know about it. There's so many moving parts that it's not what people think it is. People have a vision of what they think pro wrestling is, and it really isn't that.
Right.
And that's the fun part. It's more exposed to people now than it ever has been before. The business is sort of an open secret. But, there's other little things, there's a lot of minutia there that most people have no idea. The level of sacrifice and the level of expertise that's required.
Right, and that's what makes these stories just great human stories.
Right.
Which makes them appeal to people who may or may not know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's great. Yeah. I mean, like I said, I had a basic understanding, but it still opened my eyes very widely, and I'm grateful for that. I really, like I said at the beginning, I love them, and it's great to have you on the show.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
Yeah, and it's great to have everybody here on the show, and hope to see you again soon in the ring or out. Have a good night.